Welcome back to Beeranid 40K. Today we're going to look at builds, tactics, and strategies for making the most of the Writhing Shadow starter box in Kill Team. I've had a lot of questions from new players on how they should build their Genestealers from this box and make the most of Stealers in games of Kill Team in general. So today we're going to take an in-depth look at the tactics for Stealers and your options for this Tyranid starter box, and how I've been playing Kill Teams of pure Genestealers for several weeks now in a very competitive meta. So what I've learned, what I think you should know, and so much more. So like this video, subscribe for more videos on Tyranids, Genestealer Cults, and Kill Team in general, and let's get to it! I have a few different options for ways to approach this and playing Genestealers in general in Kill Team, but as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts too, so be sure to put those in the comments. If you see anything differently than I do, please don't hesitate to let me know. The goal here is for players of the Cult and Tyranids to get stronger in Kill Team, so constructive criticism and new ideas are welcome. There are a lot of options for the new player to consider when building a list of pure Genestealers in Kill Team. Full disclosure first, I did not take top place in the recent tournament with my Genestealers, but in the past few weeks I have faced a variety of opponents, from Pure Guard, to Scions, to Tau, to Harlequins, to Admech, and I played pure Genestealers in every game. So what I'm saying is based on helping you to make a roster out of the Writhing Shadow box that can hopefully take a wide range of different factions on and hold its own with intelligent play on your part. So first, the Writhing Shadow team, as made by GW, only uses 88 points out of the 100 available to you in match play, so it's leaving extremely valuable points on the table. And not only that, it just isn't optimized very well. They fully expected you to buy more stuff for your Kill Team in addition to this box, and due to how they built the list, I do not recommend playing the box as GW sold it to you, especially if the players in your area are even half as bloodthirsty as they are where I live. There are some very basic things GW overlooked with war gear choices in their stock list, and they just kind of put some things on there that actually nerf one of your strongest units in my opinion, so unfortunately it's just not as strong as it can be. So let's look at the first way to improve this box: adding more models. Now I want to make this as painless as possible for you, so I'll just say at the very least you just need one more Genestealer to make a team with 9 total, or another simple fix that I like is to add one Hormagaunt to the list. That's if you want to play as close to pure out of the box as possible. So maybe you're just getting started, you don't have a lot of models, you just have this box, or maybe you're like me, you just want to play Space Hulk in a game called Kill Team. There are definitely stronger Tyranid lists for Kill Team, and you can add other things as you grow, you gain experience, you get more money to build your team, and make a much stronger list. You can take Stealers out as time goes on, swap other Tyranids in if you want to do that, and so on. For example, I'll probably be trying a lictor soon, so that's an option too, if you don't want to add another Stealer or you want to start branching out into other Tyranids once you get some games in with a more basic build, close to what just comes out of the box. So just keep that in mind that today we're just going to look at the bare minimum additions as if you're a new player and you only have this box, or you want to play an all Genestealer Kill Team, you want to know what else you should get, how you should build up this initial box, make this box play the strongest that it can. So once you decide on whether you're going to add a Gaunt or one more Stealer, bringing your team up to 9 models, the next thing to do to make this box stronger is to just put those free Scything Talon upgrades on every Genestealer. I was surprised to see that almost none of GW's Writhing Shadow Kill Team has Scything Talons, and it's a bit disappointing because there are no penalties for doing this, no extra cost, but it instantly adds a second weapons profile for every Genestealer to use. So the fact that they didn't put them on the data cards makes me worry that new players are going to see this and build them up without the Talons, and then realize later on that they're a bit nerfed just because they built the box like GW told them to. The Rending Claws are AP-1 base, and on 6s to wound, AP-4, so they're great for tougher units. However, what I have seen over and over again is that against most lists, this is overkill. In Kill Team, you're fighting troops. In Kill Team, the majority of models have a 5-up or 6-up save, and if that isn't the case, they just have an invuln instead. So the Scything Talons are a better choice against every one of these scenarios, because instead of trying to blast through power armor that isn't even there, the Scything Talons let you reroll hit rolls of 1. This is a better option, because if you're fighting a faction between 16% to 33% chance of stopping your successful wounds with their saves, hitting on 3s and rerolling 1s potentially lets you put more hits through at the end of the day. So on models with a basic t-shirt save, or those that have invulns where your AP negative attacks are largely wasted, It's just better to attack them with the Scything Talons than the Rending Claws. Just remember, you still have the Rending Claws even if you add the Talons on. You might not know that if you're brand new to Genestealers, so I just kind of wanted to point that out. You also still have the same amount of attacks if you add the Scything Talons. So adding these has no negative effects, no added points costs. They just add another weapons profile that gives you adaptability and lets you choose a weapon based on who you're attacking. In my opinion, having the flexibility to choose between the Scything Talons and Rending Claws is a no-brainer. So add the Scything Talons to every Genestealer model in any of your kill teams. Please, I hope I'm not too late for you newer players watching this. The next big question to ask yourself is, to toxin sac or not to toxin sac? With this, the question of adding toxin sacs is, it just comes down to, I say, any points that you have available to do so, you add these to your guys. You should do it, but you should do it after you've built up your list for the most part. So the reason that these are good is that they add an additional +1 damage on 2 wound rolls of 6, regardless of whether you're attacking with the Scything Talons profile or the Rending Claws. So what this kind of means, put simply, is that 16% of the time, your successful wounds have an additional 50% chance to remove a model from the table, rather than just put a flesh wound on them. So exactly how many of these you take and who you put them on will vary, but I'm going to go over 2 possible lists in just a moment so you can have some help in deciding by seeing what I would do now that I've played these guys in Kill Team for a bit. However, if you want to just build your own lists instead of taking these ideas and rolling dice, like I said earlier, the best thing to do is build your list, take those few straggling points left over and add them to things like your Veteran Specialist and Scout especially, because the Veteran is likely the first to make combat, and that extra damage for only 1 point that comes from Toxin Sacs can really help him to start disrupting that enemy line early on in the game. The other main option available to all Stealers is the option to take the Extended Carapace. This is a touchy subject, so I'm looking forward to the comments debating whether to take these or not. I'd love to hear from you guys, but just know please, if you do debate this in the comments, please remember to be kind to your fellow subscribed cultists down there. So the reason this is a tough one is you have a choice. You can leave the Extended Carapace off and have the ability to re-roll failed charges, or you can put them on for a choice of a 4-up save or a 5-up invuln when an attack makes it through and wounds you. So keep in mind, if you put them on, even though you have a choice of what save profile to use, you can only pick one. You can choose the 5-up invuln or the 4-up armor save, even if you have both saves available to you. You don't actually use both though when you take a wound. This kind of confuses a lot of new gamers. So if you take the Extended Carapaces, what you will use will depend on what you're being attacked with. It's that simple. What this does is it gives you the flexibility to choose what save to use based on what weapon the enemy is swinging your way. The emotional dilemma, the problem here, is a situation where you do take the Carapace, you give up your amazing reroll to charges, and an Acolyte Hybrid comes screaming at you with an AP -4 Heavy Rock Cutter anyway. So you would still just use the 5-up invuln in that case that comes free on each Stealer, right? So taking the Extended Carapace in those games can seem like a waste since it costs you your ability to reroll failed charges. But the biggest challenge of playing all Stealers or mostly Stealers is actually making it into combat. Once you get there, guys, you are so good. The Stealers have that leadership 9, so they can definitely survive some losses on the way in, but if you're playing against somebody like Imperial Guard that's just raining low strength, low AP lasgun shots down at you, it can be a desperate struggle to survive long enough to reach them with only a 33% chance of a save. So, in these cases, the invuln is actually overkill, and that bump up to a 50% chance of shrugging off wounds from the Carapace with a 4-up save instead can feel like a blessing. So, if you're building a roster and you say you have a bunch of models, like I have 116 Genestealers, I can choose basically a lot of things. If you're going to build them up, WYSIWYG, you have that option. Just take enough models to spam either way and list tailor against the opponent once you know what army you're facing. The roster thing in Kill Team, where you have your whole roster, but that isn't necessarily what you put on the table, adds a lot of flexibility to do that. So you can have a team with a lot of the Extended Carapaces, a team without a lot of Extended Carapace, have them both on the same roster, bring that roster, and then depending on what you're facing, you bring those Extended Carapaces or not. But let's just imagine now you're at the bare minimum. You only had the cash to buy this box and one more model off eBay to go with your starter set, and you want to make a take-all-comers list that travels light, what I'd do is I'd say put the extended carapace on your regular Stealers and possibly the leader and even possibly the combat specialist, but leave them off your veteran and your scout specialists so that they can still reroll charges with their swift and deadly special rule. So the reason for this is that the speed of the veteran especially, and the scout to a lesser degree, is huge. The veteran can move 8 inches or advance 8 plus d6 inches before the initiative phase in turn 1 for only 1 command point, using his adaptive tactics ability that all veterans can use. So already, before you've even rolled for initiative, he can potentially move 14 inches up the board if you get that lucky roll of a 6. Now imagine that you chose take forward positions in that scouting phase. With 9 models, you get to move 2 members of your all-Stealer kill team 8 inches for free with this. So that's now a potential 22 inches of movement your veteran can make before the first turn even starts. His whole thing is insane speed. So the ability he has to reroll failed charges with Swift and Deadly is something you can't afford to give away by taking the extended carapace, in my opinion. You might disagree here, but I'm just speaking from my experience. Once he gets in, it's beautiful. The enemy panics. They might try to take a few shots, of course, the rest of your guys, but psychologically, they're focused on that veteran once they see him getting in. They start making mistakes because the pressure is on now, and that's great because the other Stealers just don't have that insane movement that the veteran has, so they need to survive the slog, even if they're slogging fairly fast with a base movement of 8 inches. Now, I can't tell you how frustrating it is to finally make it in with one of your Stealers, and they die to Overwatch because you left that carapace off. So if you're going to play mostly or all Genestealers, you just want to mix some of those carapaces in. Leave your fast guys fast, but protect your investment with the rest of the guys so they can survive to get close. So the other upgrades available to you are the Acid Maw and the Flesh Hooks that can be put on one model and only one model per team. So 2 different upgrades for 2 different models. I put the Acid Maw on the Scout Specialist. The Acid Maw is a base AP-3, so here's the way to use this. As I said, your veteran has that adaptive tactics ability, so he gets that big boost to movement turn 1. He will likely make it into combat or close to combat first, and all eyes are on him. But your Scout has the special rule letting him reroll advances too. So this means that even though the veteran starts off faster, the Scout is actually more consistently faster and able to get where you need him. If you don't take the extended carapace on the Scout, the Swift and Deadly rule lets him reroll charges in addition to his ability to reroll advances because he's a Scout. So you have this Scout rerolling advances and charges for free, sneaking up the board while the enemy is sweating about the veteran. The Scout can be basically invisible in some games if the veteran is putting pressure on, but that AP-3 Acid Maw and his consistently better movement means he has the potential for hunting whatever you want to be taken off that table. The veteran's just trying to make it in wherever he can, but that Scout is kind of like monster hunting, so to speak. So he's looking for enemy leaders and things like comm specialists, things that are giving buffs, letting big guns shoot your regular Stealers as they move up, even, ignoring cover, things like that. So his job is to take care of that, to sneak in behind that veteran distraction and take out something big, or to allow your other guys a better chance to move up and hug cover unmolested. And with 3 attacks at AP-3 from the Maw, doing 2 damage onto wound rolls of 6 from the toxin sacs, he can really hurt whoever it is that you want to go away. As for the Flesh Hooks upgrade that you can put on one model for free, I've been putting them on the veteran, in the hopes that it maximizes his damage once he gets close. But so far, I haven't really used them. He just seems to either be in combat or just outside of charge range at all times, which means the 6-inch range of the Flesh Hooks is nowhere near close enough to hit. So if you have a better idea of who to give these to, let me know, but for now, just wanted to let you know he's the one that I'm running the Flesh Hooks on. So with all of this said, let's take a look at 2 possible lists that you can make up with all these thoughts and just adding 1 more model to the base Writhing Shadow box. These will be transcribed in the description for you to see again if needed. So first, 9 Genestealers. That's the first list. All have Rending Claws, all have Scything Talons. I take the only 4 specialisms available to the Stealers that you can take. So 1 leader, 1 combat specialist, 1 veteran specialist, 1 scout specialist. That's everything you're allowed to take for a pure Genestealer. The scout has the Acid Maw upgrade, the veteran has the Flesh Hooks and Toxin Sacs, and all models except the veteran and scout have the extended carapace. This is 100 points exactly. The other option, and something that I'm going to be working with a little bit more, I think, playing myself in my own games, is to take a single Gaunt as the 9th model instead of another Stealer. I'm going to be focusing on this build in my games at upcoming events, and here's why. This list lets me add more toxin sacs to the Stealers I'm still taking. Everyone in this list except the leader gets toxin sacs now, even the new Gaunt. If you prefer to put it on the leader instead, that's fine. But my thinking is I usually try to keep the leader out of combat for as long as possible, so I thought I would put that last toxin sac upgrade on the Gaunt in the hopes of buffing him a little bit. He's only, a few points. Adding that to him, one more point, it's great. He has the Scything Talons, so hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s with 2 damage instead of 1 on 2 wound rolls of 6. But I'm still not 100% decided on that, so you'll have to play around with that yourselves and maybe let me know your thoughts. Would that last point of toxin sacs be better on the leader instead? So now on to tactics and command points. Again, all of that in the lists will be, the things that I just covered, will be transcribed in the comments, or the description, so check that out. So with tactics and command points, with this you actually have another big decision. If you're running all Stealers instead of 8 Stealers and the Hormagaunt, you have the choice to take an all Stealers list as a Tyranid faction or a Genestealer Cult faction. A special rule on page 185 lets the Genestealer Cults take Genestealers from the Tyranid faction, but you can only use the tactics from the faction you choose. So this is your choice. If you want, you can make all 9 Stealers belong to the cult, or what I think is a better choice for somebody running Stealer Spam, leave them as the Tyranid faction. But you can't do both. You have to choose one of these, and what you choose will decide what tactics you can use with your command points. In general, I think the Tyranid faction is a better choice for an all Genestealer kill team, which you're likely running if you're starting with that Writhing Shadow box. Even though you can give them the Genestealer Cult keyword, they do not have the Cult Ambush ability on their data sheet. So this is something a lot of people get confused. If you could take them as Genestealer Cults and then they'd get Cult Ambush special rule, that would be a reason I'd say take them. Yes, take them as Cult, but you can't Cult Ambush Pure Strain Genestealers, and the tactics for the Genestealer Cults in Kill Team just do not offer much to a list running a lot of Stealers. However, the Tyranid faction has a lot of good tactics for Genestealers to spend your command points on. So here are the ones I think are the most important ones for you to know and to use. So number 1 is Predatory Leap. For 1 command point, you get to charge as if you had the Fly keyword. This means you ignore terrain and vertical movement for that charge. This is huge. There might be 2 buildings in between you and an enemy model, but just when they thought they were safe, you suddenly just appear out of thin air. This is especially very scary, considering your models without the extended carapace can still reroll failed charges. So another good tactic for your Stealers is Metabolic Overdrive. This costs 2 command points to use, and it risks a 16% chance of a mortal wound, but it lets you make a normal move twice, which can reliably get a Genestealer 16 inches up the board, instead of the usual max move you have of 14 inches if you advance 8 and d6 and roll a perfect 6. So at first I thought this included the ability to charge, or advance, or move, but it turns out I was wrong. This is for 2 normal moves, not just 2 kinds of moves in the movement phase. So I owe apologies to a few opponents where I used this incorrectly, but now I know the rule, so I'll be playing correctly in future games. So Caustic Blood is a decent tactic for Stealer lists too. This potentially deals a mortal wound to nearby enemies when a model dies for 1 command point. There are plenty of times where this did nothing for me, but I've also had this take out an enemy leader and put a flesh wound on another guy for just 1 command point. So it can work out if you have the command point to spend. I say give it a shot if you meet the requirements to use this. Feeder Tendrils is also a no-brainer. It's a great tactic, but I often forget to use it in the heat of a match. This lets you spend 1 command point to gain D3 command points if a Genestealer or Lictor kills an enemy leader. So you have nothing to lose here, because the worst scenario is that you get your command point you spent right back, even if you roll the worst that you can roll. But you have a greater than 66% chance of getting extra command points from this, so there's just no reason why you wouldn't do that. So try to remember that you have this. And Gritted Teeth is a tactic available to all factions for the rulebook. It's very handy. So your Stealers, as you're marching up that board, they're going to collect flesh wounds on the way up to the enemy, which nerfs them when they finally make it in. What Gritted Teeth does is it lets you ignore the penalty from a flesh wound for 1 model for 1 command point, which is great for getting a hurt unit to get, fight without being nerfed when you really need it to happen in a turn. So it's just 1 model, just 1 turn. So these are some of the tactics great for Stealer spamming Tyranid lists, so be sure to check out the rulebook and cards for your Writhing Shadow box for more that you can use. In addition to the ones I talked about already, I also like the tactical reroll, the decisive move, and insane bravery abilities with my Stealers, so check those out, make sure you're familiar with them, and you have them in your toolbox. So I'll be adding those lists that I mentioned earlier to the description, so you can have a closer look and get ideas and inspiration, or just plug and play much stronger than the box as you first got it. I'll also include a list I made for taking a lictor and a Hormagaunt, so check that out too. It can be yet another step for you to try if you get your next paycheck and want to build on this box yet again. So you imagine you got this box, you go out, you go on eBay, you get one Stealer or one Hormagaunt, and now it's the next week, you know, you get a little bit of cash here, go out, pick up a lictor, give that a try, and just little by little start to build this box up and, you know, give your Tyranid army, your faction for kill teams, just a lot of versatility there. So please let me know what you think of this tactic, as I'm always happy to hear your thoughts and talk Tyranid tactics in the comment. This type of list definitely has pros and cons. Pros being insane movement, deadly attacks. Cons being no shooting and low survivability to ranged attacks. But this is a lot of fun. This is a great way to play kill team. I've been having a blast. So I hope you guys are enjoying your bugs in kill team. I'd love to know what list you're running, so drop that in the comments. There's so much versatility in the NIDs, so it'll be fun to see. Are you spamming Tactica bugs? Or are you going more assault like I am here? Just so on, let me know. Of course, I'll be talking more about my beloved narrative Genestealer Cults build too. I'll work on that soon. I decided to convert every model up for the Cowboy Swamp or Desert theme a little bit. So once I get converted, you know, everything converted up, painted, and start getting games with those, I'll share some of that with you guys too. So like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for all of that, and I'll talk with you again here on Beeranid 40K. Thank you guys, wishing you the best. Hope you're having a great day. 1,000 subscribers just around the corner. Oh my goodness.